Alright, hey everyone, long time no see. I thought I'd put up a quick video because I'm a little bit busy right now with PhD work, but I feel like this is a useful video because I spent a lot of time in tents outside and snowmobiling around in the Arctic this past summer. And there were things that really would have made my life so much more comfortable if I had known that these things were useful in those kinds of temperatures. So this is going to be geared towards people that work outside, or maybe you like to go hunting outside in the snow or in winter conditions. Maybe you just like to go camping around in winter conditions. If you're an outdoorsy person like me, these things are essential things that really would have made my life way easier and much more comfortable. So let's get started with some of these items. So I may as well just start out also by mentioning that today it snowed. It is September 22nd and it snowed for the first time. So yeah, that's my life. I literally get no break. I have like 1 month of summer because I work in the Arctic and then I come back here and it snows in September. Anyways, so the first thing that I would recommend you getting is very different types of gloves. So when I went up to the Arctic, I only had one pair of gloves, which was this heavy duty Wind River pair of gloves. They are fairly well insulated and they worked okay, but the number one thing that you realize is that if things get wet or if things get full of snow, it takes forever to dry them out in the Arctic, and so you really need multiple sets if you're going to be doing a lot of outdoor work, because you just don't want to have wet gloves in cold temperatures. So I would highly recommend getting something like these. I just picked these up. You can get really good deals on them, but they are just a very thin pair of gloves that can fit inside of the larger pair right here. And also just a knit pair. So you have 3 sets of gloves and they're good for all different types of things. The thinner sets of gloves are probably going to be really useful inside of tents, whereas the thicker sets of gloves are going to be useful outside of tents. But when you're in really cold temperatures, you need gloves on almost at all times. So if I had had these and gloves like these, I would have been able to read in my tent. I couldn't even read in my tent because I couldn't take my gloves off to turn the pages of the books. It was that cold. So get multiple pairs of gloves. One thing that I will recommend for very, very cold temperatures is a set of really high quality mitts. These are made out of seal fur. I know some people don't like that. In all honesty, I was 100% against it. I'm only okay with using fur if the animal is completely used. These were bought from an elder in Nunavik. So this was a seal that was hunted for food, and then the fur was converted into mitts. And when you get to really high temperatures, you start to realize that there really is no substitute for fur. As much as I hate saying that, when you get to certain temperatures, you can't substitute things. These things keep your hands warm at minus 50 degrees Celsius. That's why it's important to have something like this. The next thing that I would recommend getting is not really scarves. I don't know what you would call these things. They're not balaclavas. Are they Gators? These things that just slip over your head and you can wear them up around your nose. Could you hear me? You can wear them around your nose, like up to here. These are super useful for snowmobiling around if you're getting around that way, or if you're riding a horse and doing hunting that way. This would be very useful as well. So I have 2 pairs of those. Like I said, always get multiples. You can get things wet, so I have 2 of those that I bring up now. The next thing is a couple of really good sets of toques. I don't know, what do you guys call these things? Beanies? I don't know. In Canada we call them toques. So yeah, get some really good sets of toques because that will save your head and your ears. The next thing is a pair of goggles, or I guess they're like snowboarding goggles. These guys are super helpful on skidoos because you have snow coming directly at your face. So I would definitely recommend getting one of these, and if you can get polarized ones, that's super, super helpful in snow conditions, because sometimes you can get whiteouts where you can't really see anything. So if they're polarized, it'll make small details much more noticeable. The next thing is really good socks. So these are Kodiak socks. I tend to like those, but you really have to invest in some socks that are very high quality, and I would make sure that you have a ton of pairs, because when you're out in very remote conditions, you don't have a washer and dryer. So these guys get gross very, very, very quickly. That might be too much information, but like by the end of my Arctic research season, my socks were crusty. It was bad. So you need a lot of them. The next thing is something that I found out when I went up to the Arctic, and I had never heard of this brand before, but I would highly recommend this brand, is the Hydro Flask. This thing keeps stuff warm for hours and hours and hours. So I would recommend getting at least a bottle for hot drinks. I know that I'm going to be using this for hot chocolate when I'm sitting in my tent waiting for the foxes to go into traps. And the other thing, I mean, you don't need to get this, but I think that this is such a good size, and it's perfect for like just transporting a small amount of food, is their new food flasks. So I picked this one up today. This is perfect for just putting in your backpack and taking with you. So both of these take not very much room up, and they're super good at keeping food and drinks warm for a very, very long time. So highly recommend Hydro Flask. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go to the floor here for the other stuff. So the next thing is a Therm Arrest. So you guys probably know what a Therm Arrest is, but when you're sitting in a tent or something like that and there's snow on the ground, you really need a level of insulation in between you and the ground, and this guy was awesome for me. So I would definitely recommend that you get one of those. They are pretty cheap, actually. I think this was around $20, something like that. And then also you want to get a good pair of boots. Now, these are the pair of boots that I took up to the Arctic. They are Aggressor Boots. These guys were not insulated enough for me. So I have tried out Sorel boots, and these guys are super insulated. They go to minus 40 degrees Celsius. So definitely just get yourself a really, really good pair of boots, because it's gonna save your feet a lot of grief. The other thing, I don't have them with me right now, but get as many of those heating packs as you possibly can. I'm going to pack so many of those things for my next field season, because I actually caused nerve damage on my toes from this past field season because I froze my toes so much, like at the border of frostbite. So I had nerve damage. They've somewhat recovered. I still don't have feeling on the very tips of my toes, but if I had had those little heating packs that you can just open up and you expose them to air and then they get really nice and warm and you can shove them in your boots, that would have saved me, because I mean that was a luxury. Whenever I had that, I was so happy. The next thing that I would recommend is just a good Gore-Tex jacket or a waterproof base layer kind of jacket. This is Mount McKinley. In all honesty, the brands that I really recommend for clothing are Mount McKinley. They've never let me down. I have so much stuff from Mount McKinley and the North Face. Those two have been perfect for me when it comes to clothing. There's a lot of other, oh, and maybe also Columbia is fairly good, but those have been awesome for me. The next thing too that I would recommend is a good pair of snow pants. So these are, again, Mount McKinley, and these are just so awesome to have. Next thing is a really good parka. So here is my Mount McKinley parka. It goes all the way down to my knees, which is really important. You just want to cover as much of your body as possible. And it is down. So that's another thing. And I used to be fully against using any down in products. Like, I would look at my duvet covers, I would look at my pillows, everything, to make sure that they were down free. And 100% I think that's totally doable. But going up north, I noticed a significant difference between artificial fillings and down. So I needed a down jacket, and you can do a whole bunch of stuff to make sure that it's down that's, what's it called, ethically collected versus just, I don't know. But this is an ethical jacket. I know that, at least. I did my research on that. So they use, I think, chicken feathers from animals that are harvested for food. So it's not just like a separate animal that's being killed. So, okay, getting on track now. The next thing that's essential is a really good waterproof bag, because, like I said, snow gets in everything, and especially if you're going through a melting season, it's very important to have a waterproof bag, because you can have cameras or any type of electronics. It needs to go in a waterproof bag. And then obviously base layers. So this is a fleece. I would recommend a bunch of fleeces. That's going to keep you very nice and warm. Is there anything else that I would recommend? I'm sure there's a lot that I'm missing, but that's what I can think of right now. So obviously this video doesn't include some things that are what I would consider obvious to bring. So a really good sleeping bag, or maybe a camping stove if you're staying overnight, whatever it may be. These are just kind of basic things that I really wish that I had known about before going and spending, you know, 12 to 15 hours a day outside in freezing cold temperatures. I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you guys very soon. I think my next video is going to be the video on the Arctic fox dens, so you're going to get to see some Arctic fox pups here very soon. So I will put that up in the next week or two, and I will see you guys later. Bye!